Sometimes life takes us down a path we never planned. We chase stability, success, the right career, until one day we realize it's not the life we actually want. And today's guest knows that feeling too well. We're talking with Seth Picconi, the creator of TravelMates, a company that helps disabled and elderly travelers see the world one trip at a time. After 16 years in global finance, Seth made a bold move, leaving the corporate life to follow his dream. Inspired by his father, a 2-time stroke survivor living with aphasia and wheelchair dependence, Seth saw firsthand how difficult travel can be for people with disabilities and the elderly. That experience sparked TravelMates, his mission-driven company helping families plan inclusive, accessible, and empowering trips around the world. Today, we talk about Seth's leap from global finance to purpose-driven entrepreneurship and how TravelMates is helping families like his experience the world together. So let's get into it. But Seth, you were in finance, quote, living the American dream, basically, and then you decided, hey, I want to stop it all for very important reasons. Can you kind of walk us through what happened and like that decision of changing your life completely?
Yeah, so, I was living and working in finance in Sydney, Australia, with a major U.S. investment bank, and I got a call in the middle of the night that no son or daughter or father or mother would want to get that, dad had a stroke and, you need you home. And, and if I do get a little emotional, I will. I'm not going to apologize for it. Okay. So, I got the call and, went home and, made sure that, mom and dad were good and all that kind of stuff. And then had to move home back to Sydney and get my life together to move back home to New Jersey. And as part of that, I had to refund my parents' tickets because they were coming a week after my dad had a stroke. They were going to come visit me, and I had to call the airline and say, hey, my dad is, in the hospital. Like, we need to, what can we do here? And they were just steadfast, no refund. They gave us a refund, but they weren't easy to work with. And that was my first inkling of how the industry within every industry is like not compassionate, not empathetic. And so, when we got home and got settled in and was like, hey, we want to travel again, because we thought we would never travel again. He's right side paralysis, wheelchair dependent, and all that kind of stuff. And, I dug in and said, let's do this. Like, let's research, let's, call the hotels, call the airlines, make sure, everything's in order. And even if you do that as a normal traveler versus a disabled traveler or a family companion, there's always a mess up somewhere. And we learned that very quickly, traveling to Sanibel, Florida on our first trip. And that was when the idea of TravelMates really decided to, started simmering, there.
And that was just a simple flight from New York to Florida?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so how did you have this idea? How did you get started on it?
So it took a couple of years, it really just simmered. My wife and I, about 3 summers ago, I was still working in finance. I was working for a Japanese firm. Wasn't going well. I mentally and physically, I just wasn't healthy, right? My head was all over the place. I'm 180 pounds now. I was 160 then. I looked like Skeletor, and that was the spring of the fall of 22. And, I was just like, I want to do this, but I can't work while doing it. I'm about to turn 40. Jenny's pregnant. We're going to have her daughter, Ella, in May. And in October, I just looked at Jenny and I said, I got to quit. Like, I can't wait for the bonus. Like, I need to get myself well for you and for the baby when she's here. So I quit. They put me on garden leave for 2 months, got paid to do nothing. Then I asked my wife to say, hey, can I go travel? Went to Australia for a month while she was 6 months pregnant. I love you very much, Jenny. And came back, really kind of cleared. It was kind of my Australian walkabout. Really helped clear my head out. And then when I got back, I just started hitting the ground running. I talked to one of our friends, Frank, who Colette knows very well, that we grew up with, and he had some branding and marketing people in London. So I reached out to them. They helped me with the brand and marketing. That was really the kickoff. And then from there, it was just full steam ahead.
Wow. So Australia is very present in a lot of these stories.
Yes.
And take us back to Australia and what it means to you. And throughout your life, I mean, you did study there, right? And then you worked there, and now you have a company named TravelMates. So I feel like, the Australians, for those listening, love to travel. So tell me what it means to you.
So yeah, Australia, it is a very close place to my heart. So my mom had Australian friends that they are very close with, that she worked with nursing at Sloan Kettering in New York City. And we became very close to them. And yes, I studied abroad in college, loved it, fell in love with an Australian girl. She was very great, but she's not my wife now. But she has a great life. She has a great life, in Australia right now. We're still friends. We're still mates. When I got the chance to, with the U.S. bank that I was working with, I was going to look at London, but then I was like, you know what, let me do Australia. And, moved there, loved it. Like, it's just, you guys have been there. It's a different vibe. It's a different feeling. The way of living, they're very family oriented, like out and about, like it's pub culture, right? And they're very much like all my mates hang out with each other. And the U.S. is like that to a degree, but not as much. And I just fell in love with it. I just fell in love with the people, the culture, the funness of it all. I also was in, I call them my party Seth days, mid-20s, no liabilities, it just, as I said, I fell in love with it. I moved there. My mother's friends were there. So it was great to have a family there. So they were my family when I got sick or, was feeling down. I would go to dinner with them every week at their house. And, it's just, I really immersed myself in it, and I had all my mates from study abroad. So that was great to landing and having a group of mates there to really kind of settle in was great. And it's just, Australia's Australia. It's hard to describe, but it's so far away and I wish it was closer, but it's one of those things that if you ever go, it always has that little place in your heart whenever you leave, regardless if you're there for 2 years or 2 weeks, it's just one of those things that it stays with you.
In what city were you in?
I was in Sydney.
Okay.
Yeah. So I lived in the eastern suburbs, started in Rose Bay, and then went to Point Piper, which is the mountain lakes of Australia. It's the most. I didn't know this until I moved in there. It's the highest real estate, and all the bougie people live there. I was neighbors with Malcolm Turnbull, who ended up being the prime minister after I left. But he was the prime minister of media at that time, and it was funny just walking around like, "Hey, Malcolm, how are you?" And I'm like, saying hi to like a minister right now. But it's Australia, like the beaches, the people, the culture, the food, and just being able to travel like within Australia. It's kind of like the United States, but a little bit smaller. But it said the special places, the people, the friends I made there, and the weather, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like to be Australian is to love travel.
Yeah.
Like travel just runs through everybody's veins there. And it's, as you said, you went to Australia for a month. To an American, you're like, you traveled for a month? What? To an Aussie, that's typical.
So I learned that very quickly that when I was with the American banks down there, you got a 2 month. Or 2 months? I forget. And
way more than in the States.
Yes, way more than the States. Yes. And I had friends that were like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to Japan for a month," and I'm like, "Well, how do you do that? Like, how are you doing that?" And they're like, "Well, this is how our culture is." I was like, "Wow." That was just a whoa, like moment, like, oh wow, you don't get 2 weeks and like you can barely sparsely use them. So yes, that's very much. And I look at Australians, they're like the travel cockroaches, and not a bad way. They're just everywhere somewhere, like if you're out at a bar in Europe and like you just hear an Aussie and like, there's just a group of them there. And like, or like you're like at a club and then like, they just like surround you. Like they're there. They're always like, when they travel, and I said, not in a bad way, they're just there. Right.
They turn the lights on, they scatter.
And Australia is full of cockroaches, by the way. So they are used to it. But yeah, it's the Australians. They're everywhere, and they do travel everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when they travel right, and they do it right. And that's why I wish like the U.S. would have that. But we'll hopefully get there.
Is there anything you took from Australia, your time there, that you still try to change, like that you try to live your life as an Australian here at all?
I think the no worries vibe, really, that like casual, like, hey, like no worries, like don't let it bother you, right?
Yeah.
Like don't let it like get under your skin or that aspect. And another one, just like living life, right? Just like they just live, right? They don't like their worries, like they don't like they just live and go with it, and it works out, right? And another one I think I recently saw in one of your clips was time wealth.
Mm-hmm.
They live by a time wealth, 100%. A lot of them do. And it's just, they live by, I want to live the moment. I want to live with my family. I want to see my daughter growing up. I want to see my cousins grow, I want to be with my family, or, they want to live that. And that's what I love about Australians. Is that they're just in the moment rather than thinking about the past or thinking about the future. They're just
Yeah, time wealth is something that kind of shapes us a lot. And I mean, that idea came from a book that kind of shaped our lives, which is from Rolf Potts from Vagabonding. And time wealth has always been how we've decided to make decisions about what we do, because there are things that we could do in theory to potentially make more money. And it's like, well, what's that really going to lead to? And I think when people understand the concept, it's kind of like an inception where it can grow positively, and they're like, I need to change what I'm doing. I'm going to make decisions based on this. Or sometimes like it's repulsed because of their internal beliefs of, no, I need to do the corporate life. I need to be this finance guy who works for the Japanese finance company. And it's interesting to see how some people their energies just don't vibe with it. Oh. And then other people absolutely vibe with it.
Oh yeah. And like I said, I could have worked in finance and kept on going and making a lot of money. Yeah, but it didn't align with my values. My values is traveling and helping people. And that's when that turning 40, having a baby, that time wealth started really sinking in, being like, this is the value. Right? The asset is time. Yeah. It's not money. It's not a big house. It's not a fancy car. It's time. And that's the thing that you don't get back, and that's 100% that, one of the main drivers of me and TravelMates is spending time and giving back and, aligning those values.
Let's dive into that.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned that the first trip with your dad was down to Florida.
Yes.
Take me back to that trip, because I know that a recurrent theme amongst entrepreneurs that we hear is there was a major pain point, and then out of that frustration became a solution. You created one. So take me back to the pain point and what it was like traveling with your dad for the first time, because you guys had traveled a lot before this together.
Yep.
And now it was a whole new way.
Yep.
What was it like?
It's tough. It's, juggling bags, juggling a father in a wheelchair, right? Juggling a mom, and now juggling a child, right? As part of the multi-generational travel. It was eye-opening, and it was kind of saddening too, because you think like these big corporations or, these airlines and hotels would have it done right by 2025 in this world, but they don't. So, when booking it, as I do with every client and with my father, is you book it online, make sure the profile is set up, with all the requests, wheelchair requests, anything like that. Then you call the special assistance line, confirm it there. Then before you leave, you call the special assistance line. Then when you get check-in, you check in, making sure there. Then you went to get the gate, you do it there. Okay, awesome. Everyone's on the same page. But then when you get to the gate and you go, oh, I need a aisle chair to get my dad in. Oh, well, we don't have one. What do you mean you don't have one? The flights, we're about to board, and we need to get my father on this flight. We're pre-board, so, oh, well, you're going to have to wait. Well, no, that's not really how it works here, right? So that's when now Papa Bear Seth kind of comes out. At that time, he wasn't Papa Bear, it was just Seth, it was just like, all right, let's figure this out, right? As a compliance officer in finance, I was always presented with major problems, and you have to make major solutions to those. So like it's, hopefully the people that I was working with that first trip, they weren't that empathetic. They were just there to do the job and just get it over with. Whereas like, that's not the way to handle in this community things. So like when we're getting on the plane, they're like, all right, well, we're going to get you, finally the aisle chair came, and they're like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this. This is how we're going to get your dad. And I go, no, like that's not how we're going to do it. Because like, if you do it that way, then you can injure my father. And they're taught a standard protocol of how to assist people in wheelchairs, but not every disabled person is the same. Every disabled person has a different disability and different way to maneuver, transition in and out of a wheelchair, whatnot. And I remember the person was like, all right, well, we're going to do this. And I was like, no, we're not going to do it that way. And my mom's sitting there uh-oh. And my dad's sitting in the wheelchair like, okay. And he was like, well, this is how we're going to do it. And I just looked at him and I go, listen. I was like, we're going to do it my way, and you're going to listen. When I need you to do something, I want you to act on it and just do it. Don't ask questions, just do it. He's like, no. And I was like, listen, you drop my father, injure my father, I'm going to sue you personally. I'm going to sue the company you work for, the third party. I'm going to sue the airline, and then I'm going to sue the airport. Do you want to go through with that? Oh, well, And I'm like, okay. I was like, let me and my mother do this. My mother's a nurse practitioner for 40 years. She knows how to help disabled people transitioning out of beds and wheelchairs. And so we do it. And finally I get my dad in. I was like, the one thing I wanted him to do was pull the wheelchair out. When we get my dad standing up, just pull it out and I'll get him the aisle chair. He did it. We got him on the plane perfectly. And after that, when we were walking out, and I gave him a tip because that's just the right thing to do, even though he wasn't the most helpful, but he's doing a job. And he looked at me, he said, "I want to thank you." And I go, "Okay." Like, I was kind of, because it's a lot going on. And I was like, you want to thank me? He goes, yeah. I go, do you want to thank me because I taught you how to listen? And not in like a abrasive way, but it was a very Jersey response. And I was like, you listened to me, right? And he goes, yes. He goes, now I understand that every person is different.
Wow.
And I was like, you got to understand that with disabled people, or just people in general, right? It doesn't really matter. It just, disabled world is very more niche and centric. And it kind of gave me a little butterfly flair, being like, I may have changed their mentality, right? And the next person that they're going to help, that they may have that empathy or compassion to help them. And then, when we got off the flight, similar situation happened. And, it's kind of a recurring theme of when I travel with my father, is just like saying the same thing over again, which is fine, but like, it shouldn't have to be like that. So like, those are the pain points of like, the people that they hire, they don't hire with empathy or compassion, and they don't necessarily train potentially.
That's the thing,
and
the training.
It's the training piece is like, it can go a long way. And like, I've done a lot of training in finance, telling guys not to do things illegal and not to go get put in jail and get fined millions of dollars. Right? It shouldn't be that hard, but as I said, they use a lot of third party companies. So like, the airlines in the U.S., which is kind of fragmented versus Europe, the airlines in the U.S. are responsible for disability services, whereas in the EU, it's the airports that are responsible for the disability services. So when we go to Europe, it's efficient, clean, on and off the plane. They don't, I had a little tiff, when we went to Barcelona last winter, where they were like, "No, we got to do it this way," similar to. I was like, "No, let's just do it this way. It'll be easier. Like, this is how my dad does it." And we got through it. But those pain points of just, it's really just dealing with the individuals who are there to help you, and that's kind of the pain point. And I've had some good ones. There's been some guys that are people that are really great. They understand it. But there's few and far between. So like, those are really like those pain points of the first trip, was like, I can't believe this is still happening in it was 2020 or 21 at that time. But, I just can't believe that, that people still have to deal with these type of issues when AI is running the world, right? Yeah. Like, how can you not fix these kind of issues in this day and age? So
it's eye-opening when you change roles in life. And, you go from, like you said, party Seth, party Scott, party Colette, that or like, we're dinks, dual income, no kids. And you just see the world differently. And you think about like, I've got a 6-hour flight, like, or an 8-hour flight. Oh, it's going to be so tough. Nowadays, it's like you have a flight by yourself. Like, it's super easy. You don't have to deal with kids. It's a vacation. Now the position you're in, do you have hope for the travel industry?
I do. So I just came back from it was my first trip away from Ella since she's been born, to Seattle a couple weeks ago, to it's a organization called All Wheels Up. It's a woman called Michelle Irwin. She is a fantastic woman. Her son is disabled, and she's same thing I went through, she went through. She flew with her son. It was chaos. They were zero compassion, zero empathy, and she goes, there's got to be a better way. And her son's in a wheelchair. And so she is the only organization in the world right now that's actually funding and crash testing wheelchair R&D for airlines. So she has a global forum every year, and it was in Seattle at the Microsoft campus a couple weeks ago. And to see that room filled with 100 plus people talking about the same thing. How can we solve this problem? And the airlines were there. There was Broadability. There was GM was there. There's all these big firms there, looking to learn from the community. And the reoccurring theme is, well, when is this going to happen? And that's kind of the thing. Is the tough thing is that it's incremental, and you gotta bring it. You got to get to the finish line, but you got to start somewhere. And they've started, but the big companies, you take space away from an airline. That takes money away from their seats. That takes money away from the shareholders and the bottom line, and they don't want to do that, right? So I do think there's hope. I hope I can help move that along, with what I'm trying to do is, my phase one is really just kind of bringing out the compassion, empathy, and building a network, speaking with you, speaking with, these other organizations out there and, partnering to try and get to that shared value, right? Of just solving a solution, because the data and everything on disability traveling is all over the place. It's here, it's on Facebook, it's on this group, it's this website. And I want to try and bring a lot of things into one in the TravelMates world. So like I'm right now, hopefully going to launch my first blog about all the airlines accessibility pages, right? They're not easy to find. So what I'm doing is I just took everything out and just pulled all the links and said, here's the accessibility page, here's disability, here's vision, here's that. So like people, instead of searching for it, they can find it easily. And I think that's that first small step to hopefully get to that end run, to really get to where it needs to be. And it's going to take time. Listen, if it hasn't happened in 2025, it may not happen until 2060, right?
Yeah.
you never know. But I hope that I can incrementally change that with what I'm trying to do, is really just putting that empathy and compassion back into travel. And it doesn't have to be for disabled. It can be for anybody, so if that makes sense, if it answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does. I mean, I know that there's a lack of information out there because my dad is disabled and, it happened recently. So that's why I think this is so important, because this can happen to anyone at any time. And it's really important to have that information.
Do you want to pause real quick?
Sure. So this could happen at any time to anybody. And when we were living in Nice, my parents were coming out to visit and I was trying to help them book the travel and coordinate the wheelchairs. And I'm a travel expert, right? I do this for a living. And it is tough. It's really tough. From calling the airline, double checking, making sure that everything is set in place, and then getting to the airport with them, making sure that the wheelchair is there when they do indeed get there. I have to say, when we went to Nice Airport, while it took some time to get the wheelchair, everybody was so wonderful. And I have heard kind of what you echoed before about in Europe, it was a bit more buttoned up. And then in the US, not as much, unfortunately. And that has also been their experience with this. But I'm so glad that you have invented TravelMates and are bringing this to the world, because the world needs this. And I mean, there's people of all ages. Like you said, you met someone that had a child that was disabled. You have a father that's disabled. And there's just such a lack of information out there. So tell me, in addition to the blog, how are you getting that information out to people?
So right now it's, the blogging, the social medias, that type of stuff, which I'm trying to build that presence, also is reaching out to other, I'd say industry, you can say influencers or however you want to define them as, within the world. I said I have a call after this with an organization that deals with intellectual disabilities, and work trying to get the word out through them, because it's a big word of mouth community. It's all about word of mouth. If something goes good, all right, use them. Or here's the good tip. Here's that. So really, I said right now it's kind of a slow roll. I said being a stay-at-home dad too, juggling the pieces of it all. But yeah, I think really that social media, the partnerships. I've been trying to getting in, speaking with the airlines, and speaking with the hotel partners and stuff like that. Also just talking to people, right? When people call me with a question, just say, hey, just giving the information, right? Like I'm not going to charge for something that's, it should be free already. Right. So that's kind of like where my current phase is at the moment, is just kind of spreading the word organically. And then hopefully, as I said, my phase 2, really get that higher marketing kind of firm to really kind of ramp that up. So right now, yeah, just kind of that organic homegrown information, kind of website, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then it's really that word of mouth piece.
So walk me through it. I call Seth at TravelMates and I say, hey, my father wants to travel and we want to go to Italy, because that sounds about right. How would you take me through that process? And how would you, eliminate those pain points for him?
So first, just understanding the disability, right? Is it intellectual? Is it hidden? Is it physical? And making the family, the person, the companions comfortable, right? If I could do it in person, I would rather do that, because it's just easier to talk to people. You get a better feel. But it could be over phone call or virtual. Getting to know the people first, right? Getting to know why they want to travel, right? Maybe it's their first time traveling, such as, I don't know if Neath was your father's first time traveling, after his disability, became disabled or whatnot. But it's just like that comfortability to know that like there's someone there that knows what they're going to do, has the expertise, has empathy and compassion, and then move on to like, you build like a profile, right? You have that just like any customer profile is, what are your assisted mobility devices? Are you wheelchair? Is it mechanical? Is it manual? Does it have batteries? Because batteries are a big no-no on planes. And that's a big pain point for people in mechanical wheelchairs because one, they're heavy and they don't want to carry it, lift them up. And two, the batteries. And so that's another thing that's, knowing those insides of like what you need to pass those hurdles, right? And those hurdles can be good or bad. But really just, sitting down, getting to know them, knowing why they want to travel, knowing, their budget, just like any other kind of travel, because I'm a new travel advisor. So, getting that, what's your budget? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you want to see? Are you just walking around? Do you want a tour, right? So, there's those pieces that in order for me to then apply those to the airlines or the hotels, because the amount of times that I've called hotels, I'm like, hey, do you have a roll-in shower? Yeah, we have a roll-in shower. Then we get there and there's a lip and you're like, this isn't a roll-in shower. But it's a roll-in shower to some people. And that's that's where the information kind of piece comes in too. So really just building that customer profile, the customer needs, piece of it, and then moving into the planning side of it, right? These hotels are very, handicap accessible, right? And that's another thing of information-wise is I want to kind of try and bring the hotels that do it good and share that to, the people that, need it the most. Because some hotels don't do it good. When we were in Barcelona, the manager essentially was, told my dad that, oh, well, he doesn't need a shower chair because we have a shower bench. I was like, but your shower bench is this big by this big. You think I'm going to get my 74-year-old father 250 pounds on that? And he was like, well, no. And he was like discriminating against us. And I was like, how does this even happen in this day and age? Just do it. But, with that pain point, if I know the hotel already is good with a shower bench or everything, that's where I would hopefully direct my clientele to. So it's really building that customer profile, that, the needs, the wants, and then going through the gauntlet of the planning logistics, and that phase one is, I said, just partnering with the airlines, trying to really get into the airlines and, understanding where they can help versus when they can't help. And that's just part of the process. You just learn it as part of the planning process of, when we get to Newark, is there going to be a wheelchair attendant there? I hope so, but you never know.
It just seems like something that should exist already. It really does. Like the way you're describing it, I mean, I know that, it seems like a much smaller problem, but it's like, even when we've tried to book like baby bassinets or cribs with hotels, and they'll say, we'll put the request in for you. And you're going, this is...
But it's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. Things like that where you're like, no, this is, it's my child's bed. I need to have this. I need to guarantee things like that. So it's interesting that on this world, this niche, there's no one out there doing it already. So I can see how it is definitely an idea that needs to come to fruition.
So there's definitely people out there, right? There's individual advisors that are doing it kind of like I am, but I don't think I'm not saying... I'm going to be a lot more vocal, I think. I feel like I'm trying to be a lot more advocating, with that. There is another company out there that does it. They're more of a online OTA, online travel agency. So like they don't really have that face-to-face one-on-one. They can do it, but online travel agencies, you make your money via booking online, right? You're not talking to somebody face-to-face, that doesn't help them. But, there are people out there. Have I heard that? Do they do it good? I've mixed responses, right? I'm not going to knock anybody, but there are some people that are out there doing it, getting the funding, which is good to see, and I hope that I can get in there too, and be part of this growth in this world, because in this world, I'm not going to knock a competitor because they're also doing the same thing that I want to achieve, so unless they do something bad, which is different. But there definitely is a niche market in there, but I think it will grow, and I think that's why I see this as a growth potential, because baby boomers, our parents, they're retiring, they want to travel, right? some, as our fathers are handicapped, or some are just older and don't know how to travel, or became disabled later on in life, and that's where I think there is definitely a big potential. And I want to show the hotels, the airlines, that they're missing out on a huge revenue gap right now, because if they're loyal, and I was talking to actually the head of regulatory affairs at United Airlines at the conference in Seattle, and he said, I was like, we're loyal to you because we think you do it the best when we travel with my father internationally or domestically. And he looked at me, he goes, Seth, I couldn't agree more. And that's what we need to focus more on, our clientele that are loyal to us. And I was like, in this world, in this disability world, if you have loyalty, they will spend money. And there's millions of dollars to be spent. So I think, I hope I can help bring in more competitors and more resources out there, but also grow and be the consulting for this world. But yeah, no, it's definitely it's a world that is going to grow, and I think the travel industry will see that, and I think they're going to be too late to the game.
Okay.
I think down the line we're going to see a TravelMates stamp on things, like TravelMates approved.
That's in the thought process for sure.
Good.
So
I have want to shift gears just a little bit. So you're a stay-at-home dad. I call myself I'd be like a hybrid stay-at-home dad.
Work from home dad?
Work from home dad. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I get to spend so much time with the kids. But what would the stay-at-home dad tell younger party Seth?
Wow. That's a doozy, Scott.
If anything.
My values have always been family and health come first. Everything else is secondary. It's always been like that. If I could tell party Seth that the world's a lot bigger than you at that time, at that point of time in my life, I think I would have figured out things sooner. That time wealth, but when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're still in that party world, and that kind of we got to hang out with everybody. Whereas now I'm like, I don't want to hang out with anybody, but I think really better using my time, right? Better, using my resources. Yeah, it was great. Well, I got to travel Australia and, all that kind of stuff, and, got to go to Japan and, do all these things. But I think if I could tell a younger Seth, there's more important things out there, and you should focus on them earlier, I wish I could do that, but I have no regrets. I have zero regrets. I've had a lovely life traveling and meeting the love of my life and my parents and, family and stuff like that. But I really think it's that time value, right? That, when we're younger, we don't think about time, and now that's all I think about.
You don't have the perspective, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That perspective is just don't waste your time on some things and some thoughts and other people, it's just one of those things that now that I look back at it, I'm like, why did I waste that time with being friends with that person or dealing with that situation? Whereas now I'm just like, whatever. Yeah. Off my shoulder, So if that makes sense, I think, because if I could tell him not to party as much, I guess I could, but I don't know if that would have changed anything.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
You got to have those fun years.
Yeah, well, it's just get them out of you. You can still have fun. It's just a different fun now.
Well, we recreated our own little fun world. So I got a smoke machine that has this disco ball and lights.
That's
and
awesome.
It's for Halloween.
Okay.
And I just wanted to try out the smoke machine, and we got our daughter out into the garage, turned it on with the lights, and we put on our gym music, and basically we had a mini club, and she loved it. She was dancing. Out. She's like, "This is amazing!" And turning off the smoke machine when we had to go to dinner, lost it.
It was a full toddler meltdown.
Yeah, toast. Yeah.
But I was like, "That's our kid.
That's our kid."
and that's the time that you want.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Experiencing that, right? The love, the laughter, and maybe a little pain point there, with the tantrum, but excuse me, that's the time.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that's those times that, she's throwing a tantrum, but you love that tantrum.
Yeah. It was hilarious.
We were giggling last night. Ella was doing something and we're just laughing so hard. And
it's endearing.
This is too funny. And then you're just like, you can't do much about it. Just go with the flow. Right.
Oh, there've been multiple times.
There's that no worries that I see. No
There've been
No
multiple
worries.
times she'll do something that cracks us up, and she doesn't realize it. And she goes, "Why are you laughing, Dad?" And I'm like crying. I'm like, "Nothing. Like, you're just funny."
This is it. Like, and
This
it's
is
like,
yeah.
and you know, I said you've recently been on planes. Like, traveling with kids on airplanes is hysterical.
I don't know if I'd call it hysterical.
So I guess Ella's a very mellow traveler.
Okay. Oh,
So like
good.
she's a mellow sleeper and traveler. So like when we took her to Switzerland at 3 months, she slept the whole way. You know, we took her to Barcelona, she slept the whole way. Now and we were business class, premium economy people, the dink world. Now we're pushing back into the economy, doing the 3 seats, which is great. But we only had one meltdown over to Mallorca. But the amount of time, like when we're walking on the plane, like, wow, she's really good. And I'm like, I don't know what I did because like I was not like that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Luckily, Jenny was. But like the flying with kids is funny because like either you get the looks or you get the smiles.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And like the smiles obviously trump the looks. But when you can turn that look into a smile after, that's another win that I look at. Like,
Yeah.
It's just like if you could change somebody. I remember we were going on the plane to Geneva or going to Switzerland, and this guy was like, "Oh, I hope I'm not next to that crying baby." He sat right next to me. I just looked at him like, "Come on, dude. Like, I'm right here."
Yeah.
And then he walked by, and I was like, "Luckily, you're not next to the crying baby." Jenny just hits me like, "Would you just leave it alone?" And then when he walked off, I was like, "Did you hear the crying baby?" And she's like, "You just need to stop." And I'm like,
You guys are similar that way.
Yeah, that would be me.
I was
Yeah.
like, but these people, I'm accountability, right? As a compliance officer for 15 years, you got to hold people accountable. In this world,
See,
people,
that's what I'm doing. I'm holding them
You're just a
accountable.
compliance officer.
you have a little compliance officer
Yeah.
in you, Scott, but it's exactly it. Like, don't think you can say something to say something and like not like have a reaction to
Yeah.
somebody, and that's why like I didn't react to him at that time because Jane's like, she's crying, we just don't do it. And I'm like, but I know there's a time when I can get it, and I did it very well, and 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 he was like, "Oh yeah, she did very well," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, you didn't need to say that comment." So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, that happens.
yeah, it does, it's just, but yeah, it's just, I know, I think I took us off path there, but
all
yeah.
good.
It's all good. I mean, we've seen the people like give a backhanded compliment afterwards and stuff. Oh, she was quiet, and like you're like, okay, thanks. Like we're doing our best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Kids
why?
are allowed to take up space, right?
Yeah.
Like families are allowed to be here.
We're
all trying our best.
And then I've learned from family travel, you guys. Like I remember when Ella was born, I texted you. I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, when did you take Scotland? How many immunizations did you have?" And you gave me the guidance, and you made us feel more comfortable to travel with a 3-month-old. And I want to
Scary,
thank
yeah.
you guys for the advocacy and what you're showing out there to the travel world, especially the family travel world. Is like you can do it. Right?
Mhm.
The amount of people like, you took Ella 3 months. She's been to Europe 3 times already in a year. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, she came into our life, right? We're still going to travel. She's going to come with us. And if it's meh, guess what? You pivot and you figure it out.
Exactly.
I love the question we got, and this is from our friend who's single and not married, doesn't have kids or anything. And we talked about how I think it was like our first trip, and he was like, "Oh, are you taking your daughter?" And we're like, "Yeah, she's part of our family. Like she comes with us." And like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I guess you would do that.
You wouldn't just leave her home.
This makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, you just leave a little kibble out and
Yeah.
in a water feeder. And they'll be okay.
She's a kitten.
Yeah. But and that's another thing is like, and I'm guilty of it. When I was on a plane, I'm like, oh, crying kids. Oh my
yeah.
God.
Oh, yeah. I was too.
And then when I had a kid, I'm like, oh my God, I was a jerk. I wasn't thinking right in empathy and compassion world, and like now traveling and hopefully traveling with a new newborn in April, down the road, it's gonna be interesting,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, we're looking to have a son in April, so yeah, everything's going well. Yes, thank you. So yeah, so
Wow, save that big announcement for the very end.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, traveling with a newborn is going to be a toddler and a newborn, which I will be probably reaching out to you guys a lot
Yeah.
more when
Yep.
we do, because I know you're experts at it. But yeah, that's we're excited for it. We're excited to travel with a larger family now,
Yeah.
and you learn new things when you travel
yeah.
with a larger family. So.
Yep.
Yes. And you'll figure it out. I mean, you have the confidence in yourself, and if things go wrong, which they will, you laugh it off. You bring that no worries mindset, and you go with the flow.
Exactly.
So Seth, where can people find you and TravelMates online?
Yeah, so TravelMates. I have a website, travelmates.io, and then I have Instagram, travel_mate_s, and then I'm on LinkedIn also and Facebook. So you can find me on TravelMates and Facebook. I have a page that I've been posting on. Same with my LinkedIn and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm out there, and I'm gonna start kind of getting myself more out there. With other organizations too. So hopefully do a couple more podcasts and stuff like that. And I love how Summit's in the background. I love that. I love that. It gives me smiles. So, but yeah, no, it's. I think hopefully we'll branch out a little bit more. I think I'm thinking about a podcast now that I'm sitting here doing this. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, and hopefully I branch out on my communications and marketing in the future.
Cool.
Well, the world needs your advocacy. So thanks for coming on and sharing.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're learning from and or enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. These are great free ways to support this podcast. Also, please subscribe to this podcast on both Spotify and Apple. On both of those platforms, you can leave us up to a 5-star review, which would help us out greatly. Please also check out the sponsors mentioned in today's episode. That's the best way to support this show. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please put those in the comment sections in YouTube. And yes, we do read all the comments.